All right. How's everyone doing? Welcome to this stream. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a proper welcome for everyone. What the heck? I can just go ahead and let it. Oh, it's been dropping frames. Why would it be dropping frames? So you're wondering, what is tonight all about? What's going to be the difference between a normal stream and then, like, say, this stream? I try to scoot a little bit. Oh, I guess I'm this way. And what's the difference? Well, for one, Thursday nights I'm going to make sure, at least for the most part, and I guess I'll see how much people enjoy these. We're gonna start off with the question of the day. Is the difference a haircut? No, that is a little different, but one difference is going to be that we're going to start with the question of the day. And then I'm going to go through all the calls that I've received all day long. The phone lines have been open, folks. And if you want to know how to call, you want to know how to get on this program itself, all you have to do is follow me on Twitter. And I talk about the question of the day. And if you want to be a part of it, all you got to do is tweet at me, @_Joshua Turbo. Don't forget the underscore, as it is the most important underscore in all the internet. And I'll throw your voicemail right on this show. And tonight we're going to go through a few of them. So hope y'all are ready for that. I do want to move a couple things over here because I'm going to take notes. I'm taking notes this time because last time we had a couple calls that I don't even remember what they were about. But this time I'm writing them all down. Who called in and what game they said was, well, whatever. We're gonna go. Is the question of the day anything like the soup of the day? Yeah, question du jour. So the question of the day is, if everybody's ready, and you should have gotten the soup du jour. Yes, exactly. Du jour means family. Du jour means love. Du jour. That's from Josie and the Pussycats. If you haven't seen that movie, it's fantastic. You need to watch it. It's hilarious. So the question of the day, which you should have gotten the notification on this stream, by the way. I made sure that was the notification that went out. It is, what's a game that you... What the fuck just happened to my voice? What's a game? What's a game that in the past you enjoyed, but now recently having revisited it, you did not like it as much? That's, I guess, the calmest version of it. What's a game that you used to love that you now hate? What's a game that you used to enjoy that you now think sucks butt? Suckers. So, good one. Good one, Ring Fit Runner. So that's why I have the chat right here. So that way this time, for all those folks that are watching on the YouTube universe, they're able to play along as well because the chat, God, I keep pointing the wrong way. The chat's right here, so they can see who I'm responding to. That's why I have the chat up now. So thank you for being here, chat, on my ugly mug. Literally, the scene for this close-up of me is, do you really need me to, could you repeat the quest button of the day? Haha, butt spot. You didn't even put the word butt in there. Button is a word. Quest button. Quest button. The quest button. The quest button is that. Question of the day is, what's a game you used to love but now you don't like so much, having revisited? It should be something, because there's a lot of games that I have nostalgia for that I'm like, oh, that game's fucking awesome. And people will be like, dude, try it now. And my first thought is no, because I want to remember it as something I enjoy. So we'll see. And at the end of this stream, after listening to all these questions and after kind of rebuttaling a little bit here and there, the class button, if we have time to play a game, I'll play a game. That's how many calls I got this week, man. So I'm taking notes here of who was the caller and what game they said was something that has not aged so well. That's actually technically a different question if you think about it. It's not games that haven't aged very well, because there's tons of like early PlayStation 1 and 64 games that when you go back to them, you're like, ugh, this is aged poorly. Too much fog, terrible graphics, stuff like that. Think of Atari games. Some Atari games that were just like state of the art at one time, and you're like playing it now, it's like, oh, this is rough. Like this is not aged well. It's different. It's a different question. This is a game that you grew up loving, and now you tried it again and you're like, ugh, not so great. Cupcake, you said, so true. Monster Rancher is not the same game anymore. I kind of wish I had left it in the magic of my childhood. There's a great example. Monster Rancher. That's interesting because I actually really enjoyed Monster Rancher back in the day. I have a Monster Rancher game on the PlayStation. It might be the first one. I always thought that was a very unique and fun experience, though, because you could put, music CDs into your PlayStation, and then listen to music, and it would derive a monster that was based on that music. And I remember one time when I was playing it, and I put a Testament CD in. It was this fucking heavy, nasty metal CD. Yes. And I remember putting a Testament CD in. I think it was Demonic, their 1996 release of Demonic. And it came out with this monster that was super spiky, and it was crazy, and it was just all metal. And it was like, this is freaking awesome. Like, how could that not be cool? Well, I played like all of them to death, but the Switch re-release just couldn't hold my attention. Oh, see that pulls a lot of my favorite features away from it. You know what I mean? Like, how can it can't really. My favorite feature of Monster Rancher was the fact that you could use music CDs. Like, I mean, shit, you could use MP3s. Like, what's your favorite MP3? Like, oh, what's that? You listen to this song, you like this band, here's a monster that's generated from it. Oh, you like the Adam Sandler comedy CD, here's a fucking monster. Like, how cool would that be? I don't know. I don't know how that would work. All right. Let's get to the phone lines. I want to hear some of your guys' ideas and opinions and et cetera, et cetera. Captain Coleslaw was just here, but he actually is one of the people that called in. So we're going to hop into that and check me out some of that. So let's go up the list here. Speaking of Captain Coleslaw, got a phone call from that guy. So let's put down Captain. And also, you guys, let me know too if you can hear everything. Because if you can't hear the call-ins, then what's the point, right? I played. Oh yeah, you're still stuck on that. Okay. Some coleslaw. Here we go. Ready, guys? Let's rock.
Okay. Don't hate me and understand that I'm judging from a now perspective a game that was released back in 1992. 30 years on, I really feel the game is aged and it doesn't hold up. And frankly, it's a frustrating experience. Like I said, don't hate me. My game
I already hate you.
is Super Mario Kart. Waiting for the Rotten Tomatoes to be thrown at me. Okay, I'll continue. Even playing Mario Kart 64 is a huge leap forward, and Double Dash is exponentially better.
Sure.
But
I love Double
yeah,
Dash.
it's just it's tough to say this. I know the nostalgia beast is rearing its head, and yep, that's why I played it recently, is because woo-wee, I wanted to experience that Super Mario Kart joy again, and frankly, it sucked. So, yeah, my game is Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, and yeah, even though I sunk hundreds of hours into that beautiful bastard of a game, it just does not hold up to the standards of today.
Well, that's a tough one for me. I will admit I haven't played Mario Kart, the Super Nintendo, Super Mario Kart in a while. It'd be really difficult for me to hate it though, because I love Mode 7 games and I loved F-Zero and I love Super Mario Kart. So it's like I have a feeling I'd go back to those and still enjoy them. But who knows? Maybe we'll play a little bit of that on the stream soon, and then I'll be able to say like, wow, yeah, that hasn't aged very well. But that's a good one. Very good. I thank you, Captain Coleslaw. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, this is for Josh Jager, and this is with regards to games that you enjoyed as a child, yet, as you've become an older, more cynical adult, don't enjoy nearly as much. I
I
have
know who
two
this is.
examples, one of which is partly because this game was to a certain degree made obsolete by a far superior remake, and the other is a game that just wasn't as fun as I remembered it in the first place. So, the first game I'm going to bring up is the original Super Nintendo Star Fox. It's a game that runs extremely clunky by today's standards, and while in 1993, when I first saw the game at the 1993 Consumer Electronics Show in Chicago, and it was first being shown off, I was impressed by a reasonable facsimile of 3D graphics at the time. Has not aged anywhere near as well as I would have liked it to, and certainly does not from a gameplay standpoint, from a control standpoint, from a frame rate standpoint, from a polygonal model standpoint, hold up, especially since Star Fox 64, one of the best video games ever made, and one of the best games, simply put, ever, in fact, the best rail shooting game ever made, easily better than Panzer Dragoons Y, which in and of itself is not as good of a
Oh,
game as
fuck
Panzer Dragoon
you.
Orta. The fact that Star Fox 64 essentially took that game, expanded upon it greatly, made it run so much smoother, control so much more fluidly, and added so much more to the overall package, makes me appreciate the original Super Nintendo Star Fox a heck of a lot less. With that said, from a historical perspective, I do recognize the importance of having a fully polygonal 3D game that had a significant amount of substance to it. We're not talking about hard driving here on a consumer available game console at the time. So, from a historical standpoint, I still respect Star Fox. As a game, it's not that fun to play. The second one, and this is a game that a neighbor of mine used to have when I was a child, and I used to go over to his house and play on a regular basis, and loved playing it at his house, but of course, the grass is always greener on the other side, and unfortunately, I had a very religious mother who would have never allowed me to own a game with the name Wizards and Warriors, with wizards in the title. But in playing the game as an adult and going back and playing actually the whole franchise, but specifically the first game, which is the one I had the most exposure to, it's not anywhere near as fun as I remember it. It doesn't control as well. It's very, very random, and overall was not the experience that I remember playing as a child. So those are two examples.
All right, so that was Dragon Master Dan, a wonderful human being. He actually used to be my co-host in the old Game Huggers Game Hump podcast that we used to run on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, go back and watch some of the Game Huggers podcast. We used to go live every Wednesday night at like 9 p.m. until sometimes midnight, sometimes later. It was a blast. Dan used to be on every single week. Since then, he's gotten a new job where his job requires him to be up extremely early in the morning, so he's no longer able to do late nights like this. He isn't even going to be able to watch this tonight. He'll probably watch it on a different occasion, like on YouTube or whatever. But wow, that's a lot of Star Fox hate. Wizards and Warriors, I understand. That's a quirky game. I can honestly say I've never played through a single Wizards and Warriors game, but I did respect the fuck out of them. Like, I loved the music in Iron Sword. I just liked that game a lot because of the music. Going back and playing them, again, would probably be very different. Not to say that I wouldn't do it. I'd be down for that. By the end of it, though, I probably would wind up not enjoying it as much as my memories of it would be. But Star Fox, that was such a revolutionary game that it'd be really hard for me to look back and say, like, no, this isn't fun anymore. Like, I remember loving Star Fox. So, man, how could you how could you go back and play Star Fox and say this game sucks? His opinions, though, I think a lot of times what he tries to do is he tries to rattle me because he knows I've got a soft spot, especially for Panzer Dragoon Zwei, saying it's not as good as Orta. Orta's a good game, but Panzer Dragoon Zwei is what I would consider the best rail shooter I've ever played. So I think it's infinitely better than Star Fox 64. I'm not actually that big of a fan of Star Fox 64. That's the Star Fox sequel with tons and tons of fog. Certainly the polygons are a little bit better than the Super Nintendo version, but otherwise I don't think the game's nearly as playable and doesn't have nearly as good as music. So we'll just agree to disagree on all that. But hey, Star Fox has made the list. So now we've got Super Mario Kart and now we've got Star Fox. That's a lot of Super Nintendo hate. What the hell's going on here, guys? What the hell's going on here, guys? Panzer II games are some of the best shooters out there. I agree, my friend. This next message is actually from George from Cyber Sage Video Games in Florida. He's a game shop owner, and he's got some really interesting stories. I think he's got like a series of blogs online about stories from the game store. Check it out if you don't follow Cyber Sage Video Games in Florida. George is a good friend. We've been friends on Facebook for years and met up at a couple game conventions. But anyway, here's George.
A game that I played in my youth that just didn't live up to my memories when I played it years later is Sewer Shark for the Sega CD. My father had gotten me a Sega CD Model 2 for Christmas one year, and Sewer Shark was the packing game, so it was the only game I was able to enjoy for the peripheral for quite a while. Of course, when the game came out, it was fascinating to be able to enjoy a game with full motion video, even if it was only a small portion of the screen and was a grainy 16-bit mess. I played the game for weeks and was able to complete it many times and show my friends the ending, and they as well marveled at the technology. Years later, when picking it up again as an adult, I was a bit disappointed. Mind you, it wasn't because of the grainy visuals, but rather the poor way they laid out the plot of the story. What was supposed to be earned as a reward for cleaning up the sewers changed and became a strange and twisted story of the division of the upper class and lower class peoples and the big man trying to keep the poor man down. It's something that the nostalgia goggles did not forgive, as someone who loves hard sci-fi and loves a good plot. Don't get me wrong, I still love the game and would totally buy it on a new console if they remastered it.
Yeah, so I never owned a Sega CD growing up. I had one much, much later on, and now I've got my Exi, so it's like I could play Sega CD games, yay. So I remember my best friend in high school, his name was Matt Sheets, and he had a Sega CD, and we played. Thank you, Godsfire. How's it going, Godsfire? I will definitely hydrate. Nom nom. I remember playing Sewer Shark and loving the FMV sequences. Matter of fact, we had played Sewer Shark, we played Night Trap, we played Thunder Strike or something like that. I don't know. Thunderhawk AX-14, maybe that's it. I don't know. But I really liked the idea of the FMV stuff. But I didn't think the games were all that playable. And by the end of it, like, an hour or two, I'd say, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to play this anymore. Like, I want to go back to games that actually have like gameplay and more to it and stuff. And so I wasn't quite sunk into the FMV craze of the mid 90s or early to mid 90s. So Sewer Shark was like cool, and I have Sewer Shark now, but I don't think I've ever picked it up to play it for more than 15 minutes at a time, especially now. So the longer time goes on, the worse it gets, in my opinion. So, but Sewer Shark makes complete sense. At first, I remember GamePro gave Sewer Shark a review of all fives. Perfect 5 out of 5. Best graphics, best sound, best everything. And then at the end of the year, they were talking about how terrible FMV games were. And it's like, dude, you just gave them perfect scores. You said those were perfect games, and now you're making fun of them. It's like, make up your fucking mind. Obviously, they didn't age well 6 weeks later. Like, it's crazy. All right, let's go to our next one.
Yo, Glamonites, this is your glam god, Superstar Michaels.
Superstar.
Good friend of Joshua Turbo. Good guy, strong guy, healthy guy. Yeah. So the question is, what game were you a huge fan of when you were a child that now you go back to and it's just not the same? I'd have to say Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. I strongly remember a bunch of us kids getting together almost every weekend for like a month one summer, and we beat that game. Now you go
Still a
back
good
to it,
game.
and I don't know what it is, if it's age, what. It is the hardest. It's one of the hardest games I've played. Totally destroyed my, like, it was
It's
childhood
tough.
that hard that you could easily like conquer a game like that. Anyway, my vote is for Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. Just hit yourself in the face with an iron and punch yourself in the genitalia for 6 hours rather than play that game as an adult.
Thank you, Superstar. I guess I'd have to go back and play it. I haven't played it in quite a while, but it's using the Mega Man engine, like so many other games do. like DuckTales did, Little Mermaid. God, there's tons of them. What Yonoid used the same engine. Like Capcom had an engine made when they made Mega Man, and then they were like, let's make a million games based on that same engine. Same, sprite animations when you take a hit, the same mechanics when you fall off of an area, the same amount of time that you're invincible while you get hit. Like, there's a lot that the Mega Man franchise borrowed to Capcom's Disney franchises on the NES. So like Chip 'n Dale's is just as hard as a Mega Man game, except for in Chip 'n Dale's you don't shoot things, you pick up things and throw them at other things, and you have 2 players simultaneous. It's fun. It's a great game. I don't know exactly how well it's aged because I haven't played it in a long time, but it is difficult. I remember it always being difficult. Most of those games were. DuckTales is a tough one too. If you go back and play DuckTales, I'm sure you'd feel the same way. But in your situation, maybe it's because of your old man, your old brittle bones, and your poop finger. That's like Wayne Larrabee. It's like off to the side. Watch that poop finger. Maybe if you didn't have those problems with your hands, you'd be able to beat Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers on the Nintendo, a game made for children, Superstar. Huh? Nah. All right, sorry, I'm being a dipshit. All right, let's go to the, just going to say DuckTales. Yeah, it is. It is tough. DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, all those games. There's a ton of tough ones. All right, let's go to our next one. This will be from our good friend, Fame Douglas.
The one thing I can think of right now, especially since I was just watching it earlier today on Twitch, is the old Mortal Kombat games, like Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, and, like Mortal Kombat 3 and all this and that and the third. Seeing how far we've come into fighting games, and you try to go back, you try to play those old school Mortal Kombat games, and you'd be like, what the hell is this?
It's true.
It's funny that we got, the FGC that swears up and down that the older games are all better and this and that and the third. I'm like, no, bro, that's not it. I was just talking to somebody else about, how a lot of old heads, swear by the old games, but that's only because they remember being good at them. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, like cocaine and shit, you know what I'm saying? So like the controls, from these older games and the way that they were back in the day, there was no balance, a lot of glitches. The shit was hella broken, from a competitive standpoint, this and that and the third. They didn't care because back then they didn't have any inkling. They didn't have any understanding of what it was to be balanced and this and that and the third. They didn't understand all that. We was just playing the game for fun back then, and we all enjoyed it, just like we all enjoyed Capcom versus SNK 2. Back in the day,
it's a great game.
It was that John Blaze Bliggity. The music was fucking incredible. We all had a good time with it, but as an SNK fan, you go back and you look at it, from playing King of Fighters and everything, and you be like, man, they did the SNK characters dirty. What the fuck is this? Why did we play this game? What are we doing here? That's just, right off the top of my head that I can think of. It's like some of the old school fighting games, they don't always translate well in modern day. You feel me? Like you gotta remember, when Street Fighter 3 came out, after we were, playing all these iterations of Street Fighter 2, from Super Turbo and Super and Champion Edition and regular, vanilla, blah, 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 blah. When Street Fighter 3 came out, remember that it took a decade before most of the fighting game community figured out, especially America, figured out how to play it.
That is for real.
Street Fighter 3 didn't get good for a decade after it came out. So like I mean, there's a lot more, but like that's what I can just think of off the top of my head, just because, fighting games and this and that and the third. I would even dare say some of the old, platformers, like the old school Mega Man games, not Mega Man X, and all that, but like, the old school Mega Man games,
Just said that.
Oh, well, it's just being challenging. The cheap hit boxes, you even come close to an enemy, you getting hit, you get knocked in the holes, and the impossible jumps and this and that and the third, the cheap setups of the enemies. Like, come on. This is not fun. This ain't cool. Yeah, so I don't know. It's so much. I don't even know where to begin.
I agree, though. I think Mortal Kombat 1. And yeah, I'm glad you picked that out, Godspire. I giggle every time. I love listening to Nigel tell stories, by the way. He's so fucking funny. All those fighting games, I'll agree on everything except for Capcom versus SNK 2. And while I'll agree the balance wasn't quite right, Capcom made their own characters a little stronger than the SNK messages, or the characters. I'm sorry, the characters of Capcom looked stronger and felt stronger than the SNK characters. They didn't play quite right either. The balance was a little wonky, but that's one of the most complete and perfect 2D fighters I've ever played. SNK had their chance to make a Capcom SNK game. The weird thing is the best ones that SNK did were on the Neo Geo Pocket Color. They made an amazing Match of the Millennium game. They made an amazing Card Fighters Clash that was similar to Pokemon, using Capcom and SNK characters where you collected cards and played against other players. Matter of fact, when I first started this stream, we did like 20 hours of Capcom versus SNK Card Fighters Clash on Saturday mornings. I used to do that on Saturday mornings. It was super fucking fun. We played through the whole game. It's very much like Pokemon, but instead of collecting Pokemon, you're collecting Capcom and SNK characters. It's amazing. But when they finally had time to make their arcade game, their big 2D fighting game on the Neo Geo, they had SNK versus Capcom. Oh shit, what's it called? I don't even remember what it's called, but it's bad. Like it is incredibly bad. None of the characters play right. They did themselves dirty with their SNK characters playing like shit, and then they made the Capcom characters play like shit. And they also picked really strange characters. So anyway, it wasn't great. But Capcom vs. SNK 2 is one of the most important video games in the history of fighting games. It's important. It's got a wonderful soundtrack. It's got perfect game graphics. It's fucking spectacular. Like, that is maybe my favorite 2D fighter ever created. It's just, I can go back to it at any time and be happy with it. And that's not a game, in my opinion, that's aged poorly at all. It plays wonderful still. And like, Nigel had said, though, like, a lot of it is like, back in the day, we played fighting games because they were fun. We just wanted to have fun. It wasn't about balanced characters. It wasn't about competition. Like he had said, the FGC, that's the fighting game community. The Chicago FGC is a very, very heavy fighting game community. Like there's thousands of members, and they meet up at the Galloping Ghost, and they have tournaments and all kinds of shit. One of my favorite trips ever. Matter of fact, this is now on the 10-year anniversary, because the last time Fame and I went to Galloping Ghost together in Chicago was in 2013, in October of 2013, for an event we called Oktoberfest, where we rented out a room in the back of the Galloping Ghost, and we played TurboGrafx games all weekend. The Oktoberfest. Trust me, we're nerds. I get it. But it was a blast. We brought Fame down there, and there was a couple guys in that arcade that were playing KOF, was it 98 or King of Fighters something? I don't remember what it was, but they were like, yeah, we're the best in the area. And I was like, play Fame, please. And Fame fucking annihilated all of them. It was so much fun to watch. He was just like, boom, and he was like getting all cocky and shit. It was great. It was great. I love it. So yeah, fighting games. Fighting games nowadays are pretty intense. There are still some great ones from back in the day, but it's true. A lot of them were just made for fun. So, all right, let's see here. We got another one from another man. Here we are.
So this is a really tough question for me for a couple different reasons. One, I don't go back and really replay a lot of old retro games like you do very often. Sometimes I'll get on a kick and want to do it, and sometimes I'll spend a couple days or weeks just kind of going back over some old games that I'm getting the itch to play. But in general, I'm mostly, when I'm having my gaming time, playing more modern games. But also, it's kind of difficult for me too, is because when I was younger, my parents didn't really want to budget us, a lot of money for games, right? We really only got games on my birthday or Christmas, when I was a kid. So I kind of made them count, right? Get the big games that I knew were good and read the
I did the
reviews
same
and
thing.
like Nintendo Power and stuff before I even bought anything. So there weren't a lot of games that I bought or played that were bad. And I think the ones that were, we maybe rented games from Blockbuster or whatever. And I'm sure I got some bad games there, but I don't even remember them because, I knew they were bad when I played them. I think, while it isn't something that I replayed recently, the closest I can kind of get to answering your question here is a game that I actually did enjoy. I think it was a rental. I'm not sure. Maybe I borrowed it from a friend back in the day. On the N64, I played Quest 64. And I liked that game as a kid because it was just fun to explore the open world, and I had never played anything like that before.
Terrible.
But that game is fucking terrible. It's really bad. Even at the time, looking at the reviews, it got really bad reviews. But like I didn't like it, because of the gameplay or the story or anything. I just thought it was cool to run around this giant open world. And I don't think I ever like really beat it or anything. I was super young at the time too, so. But yeah, I guess that's as close as I can get to answering that for you because it was fun. It was interesting and unique. I had never really seen anything like it before, but looking back on it now, like that game was not good. I think I fired it up in an emulator a couple of years ago and was just appalled at how awful it was.
Yeah, dude, Quest 64 was that game that I wanted to love so bad. I think, who was it? Was it THQ? I think it was THQ. At the time, they were advertising it as the first RPG on the N64. And it was like, this is awesome. Why they would call it Quest 64? I mean, who knows? There was technically a sequel on the N64 called Aiden Chronicles, which was also not very good, but okay. And actually, the Quest 64 engine, the battle engine, isn't awful. It kind of merges this like turn-based battle with a little bit of action RPG. It's not terrible, and they wound up using it in Parasite Eve on the PlayStation Square. They were like, let's use this. What's up, Gruel? How are you doing, my friend? It's me, Jish. I miss you, man. How you doing? But yeah, Quest 64, not good. I don't think it's aged poorly because it was initially a poor game. But all right, let's hop on over here. I skipped over a couple here. I'm trying to do them in a random order here. Here we go. I got one. We are.
All right, so a game that I played when I was younger that I really, really loved and then didn't care for as an adult is actually Grand Theft Auto 2. I went through a bear of a time getting it installed on a Windows 10 machine and working from a CD. And then when I got it up and running, I started playing it, and I was like, wow, this is very limited and kind of boring compared to the other Grand Theft Auto titles. And it has such a nostalgia factor for me because it's like the top-down one and it started, making them popular. And I don't know, it was a great game. But man, it did not do it for me as an adult. Grand Theft Auto 3, kind of the same story. I tried that one too, and I was like, wow. You can only have one car in your garage. But I did have a tank in my garage that I got legit. So that was pretty fun. But anyway, not a lot of games disappoint me as an adult that I loved as a kid. But there is one feature that is terrible in older games, and that is anything to do with save points or saving in general. It's like, here's a checkpoint. It's 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to eat dinner because I'm, hungry. And yeah, but no, they make you go all that way. And like, you can't, can you pause it? No, not this game. Because whatever it is just, mean like that. They'll still attack you, but you can't save. And then the last checkpoint is 20 minutes away. So don't die, because then you have to, go back long ways. Yeah, it's terrible. The old games, they don't know how to save. I'm glad they figured that out in most
True.
newer games. Yeah. And actually, a game series that I didn't care for when I was young because I didn't understand it, but I absolutely love now, is the Punch-Out games. They're amazing, and they're so much fun, and I'm glad I just rediscovered them as an adult. And that's kind of been my thing, is discovering old games that I just didn't even really give a fair shot as a kid, and now I'm just having a blast with them. So yeah, there you go.
I like it. Yeah, interestingly though, GTA 2, the first Grand Theft Auto and then GTA 2 had a very similar style, where they were the top-down style games before GTA 3. Everybody knows Grand Theft Auto from GTA 3 when it came out on the PS2, and everyone was like, "This is the fucking future of gaming," and man, it was huge. Vice City came out of that, Grand Theft Auto 4, 5, like that's built off of this amazing open world, which has spawned so many Me Too style games that are very similar to Grand Theft Auto. Cyberpunk 2077 is like the newest one. But the original GTA 2 and in the first Grand Theft Auto, they have not aged very well. And the fact that Ring Fit Runner, by the way, that was Ring Fit Runner, that you even played Grand Theft Auto 2 is crazy, because I thought I was one of the only people that liked GTA before GTA 3. Like, I remember the top-down ones. And another interestingly thing, that Rockstar actually came out with another game like that with a top-down view style GTA from the original 2. It was a newer game that came out on the DS. There was actually a Grand Theft Auto game that came on the Nintendo DS that had that top-down style. I think the storylines and stuff would zoom in closer, and you'd have like the cutscenes and stuff. It was more storyline driven, just like GTA 3 and beyond. But the main gameplay style was that top-down view where you're like, the buildings are like moving with you and stuff. And I always thought they were cool games, but I could never quite get into them. And so, yeah, I would imagine they haven't aged all that well. All right, let's listen to another one.
Yes, Marty Enderman. I wrestled in the 1950s, and I got a question here from Joshua Turbo. What is the game I played I loved as a kid, and you go back to it now, and it's just not the same? There's this game called What the Stick. Like, it's the stick. You pick up the stick. What the stick? Yeah, object is simple. You hit somebody with a goddamn stick. Tried that now as an adult, and I wound up in jail for the weekend. It's not the same. It's just a different world, I guess.
It's just a different world. No, stick. Pick up the stick. Yeah, that hasn't aged very well.
A video game that I went back and played, and it was compared to used to being woohoo. This is probably going to be very unpopular because I would think that it would be nostalgic, and I thought I'd have a lot of nostalgia with it, and it would be awesome still. And that is actually Star Fox.
The hell?
Fox. And maybe it's just because I've played so many different games that have, like from the Star Wars universe, the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter type games. And Star Fox was really big for me for that. And I played a lot of Star Fox back in the day.
I'm surprised.
But then I took the 20, 25-year gap of playing it, and it was probably a couple of years ago, popped it in, started playing, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is not as good as I remember. And I'm not saying it wasn't good at the time, but for me, this game did not hold up at all. So
thank you.
I know some people are not going to be happy about that. They're going to be like, oh, it's still a classic.
It is still a classic.
For me, it just isn't as good as it used to be. So, Star Fox it is.
Wow. Well, that's two times Star Fox has been mentioned. I think you guys are crazy, but maybe I got to play that again. What if it ruins my life, though? What if it ruins my memories of it? Exactly. God's Fire, you're right, though. You guys are nuts. That's a lot of Super Nintendo, by the way, that's been mentioned tonight. That's 2 Super Nintendo different games and twice for Star Fox. You guys are nuts. You guys are nuts, I tell you. All right, let's listen to another one. That was Dorkfather, by the way. If you've watched his stream, you know his voice.
Ooh, I like this question. So I grew up with 2 little brothers, and basically I was never playing video games by myself. There was always a TV being monopolized, so the option was to play multiplayer games. And just recently, I was asked if I wanted to play Mario Party 3, which I was like, heck yeah, I'll play Mario Party 3. Who didn't like playing Mario Party when they were a kid? And the weirdest thing is that the same frustrating, like just built up, pent up energy feeling that I felt as a kid being ganged up on by my 2 brothers and my cousin who played games way more often than I did and would zap through the instructions so that I couldn't read them myself and then try to instruct me how to play. And, obviously I'd do it wrong. All of those same feelings came back when I was playing it just recently as an adult. So I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm being attacked, even though maybe I wasn't actually being attacked. But yeah, definitely not as fun as I remembered it being. Crap. I'm so sorry, Joshua. I have to go. Sheila's calling through. I'll talk to you later.
That's spectacular. That was the lovely thighs. Mario Party 3. I loved the first Mario Party. I was really surprised that there was like so many sequels so quick. You know what I mean? And I know Hudson Soft was making those initially, and then they kind of spawned off into their own thing, and now there's like Super Mario Party and whatever else is on like the Switch and stuff. I think there's been 2 different Mario Parties on the Switch now. So like, man, they came out with them so quickly though that by the time I think Mario Party 4 or 5 or 6 came out on the GameCube, I was like, this is not fun anymore. And I remember really liking the first one. So I'll leave it at that. The concept of the game is pretty cool though. A board game with mini games and like all that stuff. Like, I think that's a really neat idea. And I liked the graphics and I liked so dude, I thought I had played 3, but after the last time, I really didn't remember those mini games. So I question whether I actually did or it was just the ones before it. Who knows? There were so many, I'm not even sure which ones I played. Weirdly, on the GameCube, I have 6 and 7, just randomly. I think I got them from like thrift stores. So I have them. They're great for conventions because you just hook up 4 controllers and just let them sit, and kids will come up and play them all day long. It's great for that. So, yeah, I don't know. What's this?
Well, twist, rattle, and roll. That sounds Packers.
I think that needs to be an audio, like a Mario Party 3 and 3rd. Godsphere, you said you were going to stop doing that. Kidding. Oh well, thank you for the. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Here we go. Our good friend Benjamin.
So my pick, it's a hot take, but I loved Zelda Ocarina of Time growing up. I played it constantly. And replaying it, I realized all the flaws. The back and forth, the world itself is very empty.
Sacrilege.
The puzzles weren't that well thought out. There's maybe 2 temples that were decent. Otherwise, it was a very tedious game. And I would say Majora's Mask is by far the better game now, when back in the day, I always thought it was opposite. I always thought Ocarina was the far superior game, but no. Majora's Mask is. So that is my answer. Ocarina of Time is a good game, but doesn't hold up for me.
I mean, I can't argue with it. Is it as good as it used to be? I mean, it's one of those things where A Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, the more I go back to it, the more I love it. Ocarina of Time, I could see it aging. It was the beginning of that 3D, jump from 2D to 3D, and I don't think Majora's Mask is better than Ocarina of Time. I would probably put them on an equal playing field. I'd say Ocarina of Time's slightly better, but hey, man, I'm not the Zelda expert here. I don't really play Zelda games like crazy. I like the word crabut. Thanks, butts bots. Yeah. That's a hot take, though. That's a pretty hot take. It's a pretty hot take. All right, let's go on with another one here. It's Little Red.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is everyone's favorite manager and wrestling promoter.
Fuck Red.
Red Lytle. And I'm here to answer the question of the day, which is, what is a wrestling video game that you played when you were growing up?
It's not a wrestling video game.
That when you go back and play now, doesn't hold up. Now, for this answer, I actually have a wrestling video game. Now, unfortunately, Josh, this might not be an answer that you'll like, because I know how much of a fan of this wrestling promotion you are, but unfortunately, I would have to say the TNA Impact video game from years past.
You shut your whore mouth!
Now, as a child, playing the TNA Impact game was interesting to me because I never knew really what TNA was. I didn't watch TNA growing up. It wasn't, WWE was the only wrestling company that I really ever paid attention to.
What a schmuck.
But playing the TNA Impact video game, I learned about who different stars were. I learned who James Storm was. I actually learned about who Sting was through that video game. I didn't know who he was. I didn't really have a history of WCW because, I was a child when that game came out. And playing that game was fun because then, you got to play in career mode as Suicide, which then later became an actual real-life wrestler. And that was all fun and dandy for me, and I loved that growing up. However, going back and playing the TNA Impact video game, there's a lot of things about it now playing it that I don't necessarily like. I think I'm spoiled. I think we're all kind of spoiled now with the 2K games. And really just...
They suck.
Just WWE video games in general, because in those video games you get to play for championships and you can play in different pay-per-views and arenas and stuff like that. While you have different arenas and other things like that, you don't really get to... There's not much you get to do. It's very limited with what you get to do. The controls are limited. You don't get to play with championship belts. You don't get to, really play very many different match types and stuff like that. So it's very limited, and it doesn't hold up. For me as a child, it was fun because it was simple, but now as an adult, it's too simple and it's very limited. And while it's still a fun game, it's not the same. So hopefully I was able to answer this question to the fullest. And while we're here, I'm actually going to take a second to plug something real quick. NRW, No Regrets Wrestling. We have a show in Wysina, Wisconsin. Actually, on Saturday we have a show. Come on out, Marching Out Wysina. Come on out. It's actually my birthday, so come on out as a birthday present for me. Josh, I hope I was able to answer this question to the fullest.
No.
And we'll see y'all later.
Well, that was a good answer. TNA Impact, I only have really ever played it enough to get the gist of what it was doing. It's a very good arcade wrestling game. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's not a bad wrestling game at all. Matter of fact, what Jake is, Captain Coleslaw is talking about here. Hold on one second. He sent in another one.
Here's a bonus one, just
Owner.
because. My very first game I got for the N64 was WCW versus NWO World Tour. Playing like the WCW Revenge or the WWF WrestleMania 2000 game or No Mercy. Those are just so much better than WCW versus NWO Revenge. But this was like a bonus second place type of thing. I would still play it even though the controls are super bad and not responsive, and you can't do as much as in the other games, but it was my very first wrestling game.
I love it still.
Of, like, my own. So that's why it holds a special place in my heart. It's just not that great.
I get you. All right. So yeah, I had to play that one because I knew that Captain Coleslaw had sent in a second one. So.
A game I played recently that I enjoyed as a child, but did not stand up to the modern eye, is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. I spent a little bit of time with it recently and discovered that, unfortunately, it's not very good. I know that a lot of people have said that over time. As a kid, I really remember getting a real kick out of it, really enjoying it pretty much every step. And I tried to replay it here even just a couple of weeks ago. And Wind Waker is so much more. Wind Waker has so much more spirit of the series, right?
I get that.
From what the series has become, I think Wind Waker embodies that spirit more between the two GameCube Zeldas. So yeah, I'm sorry, GameCube or between the two GameCube Zeldas, Twilight Princess is definitely the weaker game, and it doesn't have all that much going for it from a modern perspective.
I don't know. I think there was a Twilight Princess HD remake on the Wii U that a lot of people really enjoyed, but it was weird because Nintendo made Twilight Princess basically just to appease all those Ocarina of Time fans, or the Ocarina of Time, whatever, how you pronounce it, because they'd wanted to continue making different types of Zelda games. Matter of fact, the one that they really put their heart and soul into developing was that Skyward Sword, which to me kind of fell a little flat. But they were super excited about that one, bringing all the waggle controls in as they could. They even made this special, what the Full Motion Plus or whatever, on there. So I don't know. Twilight Princess seemed really good to me if you loved Ocarina of Time, however you want to say it. I don't care. I didn't care. All right, here's another one.
A game I always used to play back in the day that I've recently come back to and realized wasn't all that is Your Mom, brought to you by Duofile.com.
Thanks, Nully. That's Nullity. He, of course, comes from Duofile.com. You son of a bitch. All right, so let's listen to one. So what do you want me to read in a radio voice? Read something in a radio voice, Gruel. Yeah, you're hilarious, Nully. You son of a beanstalker. Yeah, interesting. So we got a lot of Star Fox, a lot of Zelda, and Mario Kart so far. It's like a lot of Nintendo has not aged so well, and of course TNA Impact, WCW NWO World Tour, Chippendales Rescue Rangers, Mortal Kombat, Quest 64, GTA 2, Mario Party 3. What would you like me to read something? N64 games for AKI N64 games for life, radio voice for life. Okay, all right. Coming soon to a Nintendo 64. It's the absolute greatest wrestling game franchises of all time. WCW World Tour, NWO WCW Revenge. I know I said that backwards. It doesn't really matter. How about WWF WrestleMania 2000 or WWF No Mercy? It's coming soon to your N64. One of those also bonus fun super cool games that no one really talks about. That's an awesome wrestling game that only came out on the Nintendo GameCube. That's right. It's AKI's Almost Perfect Ultimate Muscle based on the anime. Check it out. This weekend, only coming soon to your N64. Is that good? I'm sorry. That wasn't really a radio voice. That was more like a movie trailer. But I'm sorry. I hope that was worth your 350 points. Ooh, yeah. All right, here's another one from our good friend Zap Crystal. If you don't know who Zap Crystal is, you definitely got to check out her YouTube and Twitch streams. She is, thank you. Ultimate Muscle is awesome, and that was a great Aki wrestling game on the GameCube. It's fun, very fun. I loved making wrestling finishers and then being able to name them. So whenever you hit your finisher, it would name them, and it'd be like Goose Pickle Smash, and it was so fun. Great game. Zap Crystal, she is a content creator on YouTube and Twitch. She also uploads and shares tons of content on the Game Huggers Facebook page all the time. Matter of fact, if you see a Game Huggers post, it's either from Crystal or myself almost all the time. Although we do get a lot of other people from time to time, but generally speaking, Crystal's awesome. So here's Crystal.
So the game that I've played that I went back to now and it's not great is called Rugrats: The Search for Reptar. I think it was released in 1998. It was a PS1 game for the rerun that was currently going on during that year. It's basically nostalgia, good childhood memories, but now going back to it as an adult and playing it, I realized that the controls are not that great. They're pretty clunky, and it just kind of ruined that experience for me. But just seeing the cutscenes and overall the story of the game, it still brings a little bit of happiness and joy to my life. So yeah, if I were to mention a game that I played now, it would be definitely Rugrats and The Search for Reptar.
That's awesome. That goes along the lines with a lot of those like PS2, GameCube, Xbox era like licensed games that had had no real business being good. You know what I mean? Like, remember SpongeBob, the Battle for Bikini Bottom on the GameCube and PS2 and Xbox? Like, it was literally a game that would be sold, that parents would be buying for their kids. And I remember bringing SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom home and my kids playing it, and I'm watching them saying like, oh, holy shit, this is actually a very good game. So like 99% of the time, though, those games that were Nickelodeon licenses or Disney games or whatever, they'd be cut and paste versions of other things. Like it'd use the Spyro engine or the Crash Bandicoot engine or try to be like mimicking a copy of like Mario 64 or something like that. Well, Conker's Bad Fur Day for the N64 is actually a very good game. It has very good puzzles and awesome level design and a great story. It's fun to play. But like, a lot of times you'd see those kind of games that were just cut and paste bullshit that weren't exactly great. You know what I mean? And so like, when you go back and say like, I remember having a really fun game, like what Crystal had said, Rugrats Search for Reptar, I'm sure it's not going to age very well because those style of games have been kind of on a progressively getting better and more fun to play, better ease of control, stuff like that. So when you play those early 3D games and you're like, well, she said PS1 era, holy shit. Like those are hard to play. They can be very difficult. Like the first Spyro is not exactly that easy anymore. And like, Crash Bandicoot, although I do think the Crash games are pretty fun. Think of like Nights into Dreams on the Dreamcast or the Saturn and stuff like that. Like sometimes going back to those games, it's like, ooh, like I remember this being amazing and now it's kind of not, or something like that. So I get that. I think licensed games are difficult often to get into, especially when they've aged a certain way, and going back and playing them again. Yeah. So anyway, all right, let's get to, I think one more.
So, it's so funny because I was just thinking about this the other day. I have the perfect answer to this question. So, the first console that my family got when we were kids was a Nintendo 64. We got it the year the PlayStation 2 came out. We were always one generation behind. And one of the games that I remember my brother and I playing for hours on hours, I mean, like, we could not get enough of this game. It was so much fun, to the point that I questioned why there weren't more video games like this out there.
Oh, boy.
The game is NFL Blitz 2000 for the Nintendo 64. Now, I'm not like a Madden person or NBA 2K or any of those FIFA, those sports games. I sucked at all of them. They weren't any fun. I mean, I barely watch football on television, let alone play Madden. But there was something about NFL Blitz 2000 that I remember just being so much fun. I don't know if it was because the passing was longer or the graphics were chintzier or whatever. This year at LinkCon, My goal was to buy and replace my N64 and purchase NFL Blitz 2000 along with a couple of other N64 games that I've been missing from my childhood. And I was so happy that I was able to find it at LinkCon. Another plug for LinkCon. Hey, you should go to LinkCon Labor Day in Merrill. LinkCon. I get home, I plug it in. My brother and I start playing it. This game is lame as shit. Like there's like 8 plays. Like we played it for like 15 minutes. We're bored. Like what is even happening? Like it's got like 8 plays. The running is so bad. The graphics, I mean, like even for N64 graphics, atrocious. Absolutely horrible.
Ouch.
The passing mechanism is just horrible as well. Oh my gosh. To the point that I don't know if I'll play it again. And how disappointing that is.
Oh shit. So I've never picked up and played the Blitz games in a serious fashion ever in my entire life. I remember enjoying them a lot, actually. I thought they were fun. I played them in the arcade, for a little bit here. I played the original. I think I even had one of them on the Dreamcast that I thought was pretty fun. But I agree. They're not anything you can really pick up and play for longer than a little bit. And to play it with multiplayer is really fun. So the thing is, a lot of those games that you played back in the day, you almost need to have friends to play with. They're not great by themselves, So and they're sometimes not even great with just one other player. You need like a group of people. So sometimes those games are best played with 4 or more players. So just don't get COVID before Lincoln. Oh, that's true. Yeah. There was that one hockey game. I think it was made by the same company, Midway. Midway made a ton of N64 and Dreamcast games. A lot of those sports games, based after they got that huge hit with NBA Jam, which was actually one of the answers for the question of the day last week. So, all right, here we go. I think this is the last one officially now.
Okay, now, a bad game or a game that I guess was good or you thought was good, and now looking back at it, you thought was bad. I don't know. The first game that comes to me is Battle Royale. When I was a boy, that game was really fun, and we had a lot of laughs, and we had a good time. But recently, I don't know about recently, but I got thinking about it, and it's really not a very good game. It's kind of empty, and there's just isn't much to it.
Empty.
Now, as far as games that were great at the time but haven't aged well, that's a totally different story. You have games such as Double Dungeons.
Double Dungeons is awesome.
I can't play that game today. Everything looks the same. Why are you playing that game now? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. These are all TurboGrafx games. Those are 2 games that come to mind initially. I have to think a little bit more to see if there are other games. But yeah. There you go, Josh.
Thanks, buddy. That was our good friend Electro Hayes, who also streams on Twitch, so look him up, Electro Hayes. Battle Royale on the TurboGrafx 16, I believe, was the only wrestling game that came out in the U.S. on the Turbo. And for that reason, I forced myself to enjoy it. And I forced myself to start to understand how to play the game. It is infinitely better with 5 players because you can have 5 wrestlers in the ring at once. Now think of this now. That game came out in 1990? Like years before Royal Rumble came out on the Super Nintendo. Years before Raw came out on the Super Nintendo, where you could actually have 4 players in the ring at once when you're doing a Royal Rumble or tag team matches. So Battle Royale on the TurboGrafx had 5 players in the ring at once, and all you did was just throw everybody out. And I remember playing it in single player mode and beating the damn game. But trying to do that now is so insanely frustrating. I'm unsure if I could do it. And I'm probably pretty certain that I'd fucking throw a controller across the room if I tried to do it again. It's so hard. Has it aged that bad, or has it lost some of its fun factor? I don't know, because I never really played it as a kid. Like if I'd played it in 1990 or 91, I'd probably have like super nostalgia towards it, because like I remember having fun with WrestleMania, the NES game. you know, and going back to that now, that's not good. But yeah, wrestling games in general, that's a lot of wrestling that's come up tonight, because it was what, TNA Impact and WCW, NWO World Tour, and now Battle Royale on the Turbo. But like, yeah, for real. This is an interesting list, guys. I'd say I can understand everyone's perspective. I can even understand the Star Fox one, and I don't agree with Star Fox. I think Star Fox still plays great. In a nostalgic, maybe rose-colored glasses, you know, thought process there, but I still think Star Fox is an awesome game. But hey, you know what? It's all for fun anyway, and everybody gave. Thank you guys so much for everybody that called in and left voice messages for me. All these different people are so awesome. So we heard Captain Coleslaw twice. We got Dragon Master Dan, George, Zach Hagenbusher, Jay Bear, Nigel, Chris Bosserdit, Thighs, Ring Fit Runner, Dork Father, Ben Cleats, Red Lytel, Zap Crystal, Jacob, and our good friend Electro Haze. Thank you all so much for being a part of this fun new little twist on the streams. I enjoyed it. That took us almost an hour to get through. So like, that's super cool. So yes, you did miss Nigel's. Nigel's was mainly Mortal Kombat is what he chatted about the most, I would say. He said basically the old fighting games from the early 90s, like when the initial, like, did I butt Nigel's? That'd been funny if it would have said, did I miss Nigel's butt? But anyway, yeah, he had talked about like fighting games and stuff, and good. I'm glad you guys had fun with that. That was fun. I'll probably keep doing that every Thursday night, unless I'm like, trying to get through a game really hardcore again. Then we can maybe I'll try to start an hour early or something like that to do things like this again. But this is a fun segment. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I appreciate everyone that called in, and I appreciate all of you out there, and especially you guys in the chat right now. But I would like to play a game for a little bit. I think I'm going to continue the adventure in Saturn Bomberman. I'm going to go get the game real quick. But I did want to, well, thank you. Thank you, Captain Coleslaw. I did want to mention, what was I going to mention? Oh, I was going to mention the game that I was thinking of when that question popped up. The game that initially came up was the game that I played through about a year ago on this very stream, and that was Magic Knight Rayearth on the Sega Saturn. As a kid, and I after I beat the game, I gave a pretty lengthy opinion on it, for like a 10-minute opinion on it. I shouldn't say as a kid, because it was 97 when I got that game, so I was basically an adult. I was 18. But when I had got that game, and I had played, now that I've played through the whole thing, I realized I only got about halfway through the game. But when I had initially played through it, I think I played through, I played through with the eyes of a kid seeing 32-bit graphics and FMV cutscenes that looked fucking crystal clear. I mean, they didn't look crystal clear by today's standards, they're not, but like back in the day. And the music was awesome, and the characters were great, and the storyline was fun, and the working designs translated, so it was really a funny game. It was very fun. But now that I've played through it recently, having played through lots of action adventure RPGs, and matter of fact, on this very stream, I played through like Eastbook 1, I played through Soul Blazer, I played through Newtopia 2 now, and then other games like Zeldas and stuff like that. The game, it gets in its own way, to the point where the dungeons are pretty dumb. There's really neat graphics. The play control's not that great. The graphics are beautiful. The music is awesome. The storyline's pretty good, but the dungeons themselves, very unimaginative. You're basically just trying to slog through it to get to the next cutscene, and that's what you hope you see. It was disappointing playing through it. When I was younger, I would say it was like a 9 out of 10. Like, it was just chef's kiss. Like, it was such a callback to nostalgia. It was a callback to the 16-bit era with like super amped up graphics and fucking amazing music, and just everything looked great. But now playing through it, it's more of a 6 out of a 10, just because like it's still good. It's still a good action adventure RPG, but it misses out a lot on what it could have been. It could have been spectacular, but it doesn't hold a candle to something like Soul Blazer. It doesn't hold a candle like Zelda, Link to the Past. You know, there's probably better action RPGs on the Saturn. What, Land of Oasis or the Legend of Oasis is probably better. Yeah, it's sort of disappointing, but still a good game. And if you're a fan of the game from your childhood and you want to play through it, and you maybe have played through it many times, I can't fault anybody, but in my opinion, it's definitely gone down a little bit. Another one that was brought up in Discord earlier today was Shenmue. Shenmue, at one time, a lot of people were saying how it was a top 10 game. Like, it was just this mind-blowingly awesome open world. You're playing in the late 80s, like Japan, and you can go and play Sega Genesis games at arcades and stuff. Like, it was so amazing, and now people are playing it, and they're like, this has not aged well. This is not what I remember it being. It is no longer fun. It's not a great game.